Hey guys, it's Mama to Wife One. Thank you guys so much for coming back to my channel and welcome to all the new people who have started following me for whatever reason, whether you just like my content, you like the way I look, whatever the reason is. I thank you guys so much for being here. I'm a content creator, I am a writer, I'm a social media influencer, I'm an editor, I'm also a mom of two babies, and I'm a wife of one husband. And I'm here to tell by the title to talk about one of my favorite things to talk about, which is music. So I've been doing a bunch of top 10 lists lately, and I don't do them in any particular order because I feel like on any given day or depending on what's happening in my life, that top 10 could easily change, right? So this top 10 list is my top 10 soundtracks. I go to the movies still, but I don't know if soundtracks are as big now as they were back in, let's say, the 90s, where they put out music videos for a lot of the songs in the soundtrack, where you saw characters from the movie who were in these music videos. Like it was a really big deal to the point where a lot of these songs we may forget that they're actually attributed to a movie. Again, I can still go to the movies, and I'm sure some soundtracks kind of have that appeal, but I feel like it's not as frequently as it was. But then I also had to remember that there was a time in the 90s where there were so many black movies coming out like every year, like between 1992 to like 1999, we had really good black movies coming out all the time that had some really good soundtracks. And actually, on this list, one of the movies is not a black movie. Hmm, what will it be? Before I go through my list, I want to make sure you guys remember to do the following things. Like this video, share this video if you like, just to kind of bring some more people to my page. Comment below and subscribe to my channel. So we're going to get started. So I'm going to tell you the name of the movie. I'm going to read a synopsis of the movie. Or actually, should I read the synopsis first? Oh, okay, we'll do that. Switch it around. I'll read the synopsis of the movie, tell you the name of the movie, the year it came out, some of the artists that are on the soundtrack, my favorite track or tracks on that soundtrack, and then some of the better known tracks from that soundtrack. So, this first movie, the synopsis is this movie is a 1999 comedy drama film about a writer and his college friends who reunite for a wedding. The writer has written a novel that is based on his own experiences and relationships with his friends, especially the groom and his former flame. The writer tries to hide the fact that his novel reveals secrets and scandals that could ruin the wedding and his friendships. This movie is called The Best Man, and it came out in 1999. This this movie, I remember seeing this movie when I was a freshman in college, and I remember just loving just the black excellence of the movie. I just really liked that. That kind of got me. And I remember buying the soundtrack. I feel like maybe a couple like days later, and it's one of those soundtracks that literally from start to finish I absolutely love. Some of the artists on the soundtrack include Maxwell, Lauryn Hill, Faith Evans, The Roots, Beyonce, Kenny Lattimore, and a host of other people. Some of the most known tracks on there that actually had videos that I remember is Let's Not Play the Game by Maxwell, Turn the Lights Down Low, which is Lauryn Hill and Bob Marley sample, well, not sample, but it's Bob Marley's vocals and Lauryn Hill. And The Best Man I Can Be, which you guys don't remember any of these movies from the 90s. A lot of times they would have these songs. So this movie, because it's starring four men, they normally have a song that will have three or four men in it, just from different walks of life and just kind of bring them together and write a song specifically for this movie. And I feel like all these songs for the most part are written for this movie. And one thing I do love about the soundtrack is that if you follow the messaging of the songs, you can tell which character is attributed to which song. So the best man I can be is RL from the group Next, Tyrese, Genuine, and Case. But my favorite track on the soundtrack is a slow song called Wherever You Go. And it's a group called Signature. I've never heard of this group outside of this one song. I also haven't like looked into them. But I don't think they're a popular group, at least not popular where I live. They could be popular overseas for all I know. But this is what I like about soundtracks, is that a lot of times it introduces you to an artist or to a group that you've never heard of before. And there's another song on this list of one of my favorite tracks, the group I still have never heard of outside of that song, but it's my absolute favorite song on the album. So that's the first one. Number two is that's my fake drum roll. Is okay, synopsis. Four friends get together frequently to support one another and listen to each other vent about life and love. They each want to be in a romantic relationship, but they each have difficulties finding a good man. The movie is Waiting to Exhale, and it came out in 1995, and the soundtrack was produced by Babyface. This is another one of those movies where you have four leading women, and because of that, a lot of the tracks Well, first of all, the entire soundtrack is all black women, which is amazing and is beautiful. There are a lot of combos of the women. I think there's at least one or two songs where they have more than one woman who's actually like singing together who don't typically go together. But this soundtrack is produced by Babyface. And if you guys are familiar with Babyface, again, if you're my age or older, you know Babyface knows how to write some songs, he knows how to produce some albums. So some of the more popular people, artists, I guess, on the soundtrack include Whitney Houston, Brandy, Tamia, TLC, Aretha Franklin, and Patti LaBelle. Most known tracks on here, some people forget that Mary J. Blige Not Gonna Cry is from this soundtrack, but it was such a great, well, I'll say great song. It was such a strong and popular song that a lot of people just attribute it to Mary J. Blige and forget again that it's part of the soundtrack. And it's a song written about one of the characters played by Angela Bassett who was done wrong by her man. And another very popular song, Sitting Up in My Room by Brandy. And then Count on Me, which is a duet between Whitney Houston and CeCe Winans. And because Whitney Houston is one of the stars of the this movie, of course, she's going to appear on the soundtrack multiple times. One of my favorite tracks on this album is called Why Does It Hurt So Bad by Whitney Houston. When I was in, let's see, this is 1995, so I was all of 14 years old. When I was in high school, whenever a guy broke my heart or hurt my feelings or whatever the case was, this song was on repeat. It's like, "Ugh, why does it hurt so bad? Why do I feel so sad? I thought I was over you, but I keep crying because of whatever." So it's a very sad song, but it definitely like fit my mood whenever some dude did me dirty. That was my song. And the other favorite track I like is a song called Love Will Be Waiting at Home by For Real. I still don't know who For Real is. I'm assuming it's a group. Don't know who they are, but that song is pretty. There's another song on there that's not necessarily my favorite, but it does have sentimental value. There's a song on there called All Night Long by SWV. Very pretty song. But a guy that I met in high school ended up being my high school sweetheart. When we first started talking to each other, not dating, but just talking to each other, it was during Valentine's Day. And it's like, okay, we ain't together, so we're not going to buy each other gifts. But we were like, we should still give each other something without spending money. He was an artist, and at the time, I loved Winnie the Pooh. He drew a picture of Winnie the Pooh holding a rose for me, and he asked me to sing him a song because he knew I liked singing. And so I sung All Night Long by SWV. That song just has some sentimental value to it, but it's a beautiful, gorgeous soundtrack. And the fact that this all black women is really cool. So number three is, read the synopsis. This movie it follows the trials of a family, a close-knit Chicago family, that gets together to have Sunday dinner every week with plenty of food to go around. The story is told through the eyes of an 11-year-old. The matriarch of the family has held her family together for 40 years around a Sunday dinner. When diabetes hospitalizes her, the dinner stops and tensions among her three daughters start to break the family apart. The movie is Soul Food, and this soundtrack came out, and the movie came out in 1997. Some of you may not remember this movie, but it also had a show, I think, on Showtime that had quite a few seasons. This soundtrack has artists like Drew Hill, Lil' Kim, Blackstreet, Boyz II Men, Casey and JoJo, and Outkast. One of the more popular songs from this movie is A Song for Mama by Boyz II Men. And I'm sure you guys are all familiar with the song. They play it every single Mother's Day. Whenever somebody's mom passes away, this is normally the song they put on their IG story. A very popular mama song. Another popular song, We're Not Making Love by Drew Hill. Now, when I tell you listen to the soundtrack, I never skip this song. There are a couple songs that I may skip, but I never ever skip We're Not Making Love. It's such a heart-wrenching song. And a lot of times I feel like you hear a woman saying that, like, we're not making love no more, like, we're not even talking. So to have four men singing it, like, in Cisco's voice, this is 90s Cisco, right? It's just a guttural sounding voice. And it just sounds like heartbreaking almost. And the video is heartbreaking because it's a lot of like, oh my gosh, I'm not talking to you. There's a coldness there. Do I even know who you are? You're a stranger or whatever. Great song. Another song that was really big, and actually this song was performed in the movie. For the movie, they created a fictional band called Milestone. And this fictional band was made up of real artists. So it was the two brothers from After Seven, who are the real life brothers of Babyface, who was also in this group, is Casey and JoJo. And I think this is Casey and JoJo, Babyface, and the two guys from After Seven make up this fictional group called Milestone. And their song was called I Care About You. But my favorite track on there is a mid-tempo song called Baby I by what I assume is a group or a duo called Tenderoni. The Little Kim song I like on there. They have Total on there. What About Me? What About You? That's on there too. I like that as well. It's a really good soundtrack. It's not my favorite, but if I'm listing like the top 10 that I would actually put in my car now and listen to, this is definitely one of those ones. Okay, the next one. Now, let me preface this by saying, before I read the synopsis, this is a very unpopular opinion because I'm a black woman. There are certain things that people believe all black women do or believe in or eat or say. I am in the minority when it comes to this particular opinion. I do not care. Y'all can fight me if you want to. Nothing is going to change my mind. And especially because of my previous background, people assume that I love this movie. I do not care for it in any way, shape, or form, but the soundtrack is fire. So I'm going to read the synopsis. This is a movie about two African American artists who share an instant connection after a chance meeting at a Chicago club. The man is an aspiring writer who has quit his job at the Chicago News City to write a novel, while the woman is a struggling photographer who is fed up with her job as an office gopher for a fashion photographer. The two bond over music, photography, and poetry and eventually begin a torrid romance. This movie is Love Jones and it came out in 1997. I do not like this movie. I have seen it once, maybe twice. It is not my cup of tea. It's not for me at all. I don't mind Lawrence Tate. I don't mind Nia Long. Not a big fan of Bill Bellamy, but he's not enough to make me not like the movie. I just don't like the movie. Like, I just really don't. And because in my former life I used to be a poet, people are like, oh, you should love this. It's poetry and it's jazz and this and that. No, I actually do not like this movie at all. And I'm not afraid to say it. I've said it on multiple platforms. Do not care. And again, fight me if you must. But the soundtrack is fire. I will never take that away. It's a great soundtrack. It has Dionne Farris, Maxwell, Escape, Duke Ellington, and a host of other people. One of the most known tracks on there is The Sweetest Thing by Lauryn Hill and Something Something by Maxwell. Now, Something Something, I believe his album version and like the radio version is pretty mid tempo, right? We can do a little something, something. The version on Love Jones, though, is slowed down to kind of match the overall theme of the movie of, again, jazz and poetry and just, think of a smoky room and think of a bass player. So it's a slowed down version, but it's still very pretty. My favorite track on there is a song that was actually written by Minnie Riperton back in the day, but this version is performed by Trina Broussard, I think is how you say her name, and the song is called Inside Me. But I'm not even a jazz person, but I really like the song. The next one, this movie, I feel like is so underrated. I feel like people tell you like, oh, as a black person, I can't believe you haven't seen this movie. This is a movie in my generation. If you are in my generation, you are a black person. Whether you like the movie or not is irrelevant, but you still should have at least seen this particular movie. This is the synopsis. Coming in on the tail end of a rhythm and blues singing group explosion, this movie shows the rise and fall within the space of 7 years of a group. Along the way, the group deals with all manner of fame and fortune and distractions, including jealousy, greed, too much womanizing, and drugs, which all end up taking a toll. This is The Five Heartbeats, and it came out in 1991. Now, there are a couple soundtracks on here that you may be like, well, I feel like that's kind of cheap that you included this movie because it's technically a musical. Something y'all may not know about me, unless you know me personally, you know me for a long time. Your girl loves a musical. I don't like all of them. I was not a fan of Rent. That's a little too, I can't do that. But I do love music. Love singing. Love all of that. So there are going to be some musicals on this list. Not apologizing for that. Not in any way, shape, or form. So most of the soundtrack, pretty much actually all the soundtrack, are songs that are in the movie. And some of the artists that sing those songs are Patti LaBelle, After Seven, and the Dells. If you don't know who the Dells are, Google it. That's part of your Black History assignment, okay? The most known track I think is on there is Stay in My Corner by the Dells because it was an actual song that came out back in the day. It was not written for this movie. It was not written for the soundtrack. So I feel like that's a popular song. The rest of the soundtrack list is from the movie. So if you've never seen the movie before, you may not know songs like Nothing But Love, A Heart Is a House, stuff like that. My favorite tracks is Nothing But Love and Baby Stop Running Around. But it's a cult classic movie, and I'm not even going to tell you to see the movie, but I would say at least listen to the soundtrack. I think it's very good. The synopsis. In this movie, he's a top executive in a cosmetics company whose free time is spent in the tireless pursuit of women. He seduces them and dumps them with no compassion until one day a female executive becomes his boss and starts treating him in exactly the same way. This is Boomerang, and it came out in 1992. Boomerang stars Eddie Murphy, Robin Givens, Halle Berry, David Allen Greer, and Martin Lawrence, and Eartha Kitt, RIP to her. And this soundtrack was really the introduction to the world of Toni Braxton. Toni Braxton, 1992, I feel like her debut album came out probably the same year, but the Boomerang soundtrack, again, Babyface had a lot to do with the soundtrack, so he brought Toni along, like, okay, this is the perfect time for people to know who you are, and this had songs like Love Should Have Brought You Home, which is on her first album. It was a huge hit for her. It had End of the Road by Boyz II Men, too. Those are like the most known tracks. But some of the artists on here are Johnny Gill, Aaron Hall, A Tribe Called Quest, and like I said, Toni Braxton. My favorite track is definitely Johnny Gill's There You Go. And I mentioned that in a previous video of favorite R&B songs from a single male. But There You Go, Johnny Gill's a really, really pretty song. And this song, next song, I don't know what it is about it. I think it's just the beginning instrumental is like piano and the voice just sounds very soft but almost haunting, but almost I can just feel the emotion in it. And as soon as I hear it, I kind of clutch my invisible purse like, oh, that song's so pretty. I Die Without You by PM Dawn. It is if you've never heard that song, pause my video, go, open a new tab on YouTube, put in I'd Die, I apostrophe D, Die Without You, P.M. Dawn, DAWN, and watch the video and listen to the song. Then come back and finish watching my video. This is a really, really pretty song. I really like it. So, next one. This movie, I remember when this movie came out, I turned 15, and for my 15th birthday, I wanted to go see it. And I don't say I probably shouldn't have seen it at that age. It has some stuff in it, but actually, I'm not gonna say I enjoyed the movie. The movie is fine, but the soundtrack, though, chef's kiss. Synopsis. This is a crime thriller about four close friends in LA who plan to execute a bank robbery. The friends each have different reasons for doing so, but all hope to achieve better for themselves and their families. The film follows the friends as they embark on a series of robberies in the Southern California banking district to fund their escape from a life surrounded by tragedy, poverty, and despair. This film is Set It Off, and it came out in 1996. Some of the artists on the soundtrack include En Vogue, Bone Thugs and Harmony, Gladys Knight, and Goody Mob. There's actually a song on here, because again, this is another movie with four leading black women. There's a song on here called Missing You. And if I remember correctly, it's Gladys Knight, it is Shaka Khan, it's Tamia, and Brandy, I believe. Four artists you don't think would necessarily come together for a song, but it is a very pretty song. The most known track on here is Don't Let Go by En Vogue. They had a video where all four of them supposed to be dating the same guy, played by Mekhi Phifer in the video. And they're all wearing like black leather outfits, but it's a really like guttural En Vogue song. It's probably one of my favorite En Vogue songs, honestly. That song, and this was my first time. I don't know if this is his first single, but this was my first time ever hearing Ray J in a song. So he has a song on this soundtrack called Let It Go. I will admit, I am not a Ray J fan. You won't find any Ray J albums in my house, no CDs. I've never spent money on this man. However, I did like the song Let It Go. I thought it was catchy. So I think Let It Go may be on one of my playlists. I don't know, maybe not. But it is on the soundtrack. And I feel like it's a better known song just because it did have a music video for it. But my favorite track on there, and this is what I said earlier about the Best Man soundtrack. There's a group on here called Blue Light. I don't know who they are. Again, I've never researched them, but I feel like it's at least a man and a woman, maybe two or three people in this group. They have a song on there called Sex is on My Mind. And it's a slow song, but I love it. The first time I heard it, I fell in love with the song. It's my absolute favorite song on this track. So if you get the soundtrack, if you download on Spotify, make sure you include Sex is on My Mind. Gorgeous song. The next one, so this is the only non-black one on here. Again, I'm a musical girl. I love musicals. Most, not most. I love some musicals. This is my favorite, not even musical. This is my absolute number one favorite movie of all time. Number one. I can give you categories of, oh, this is my favorite comedies, favorite whatever, but this is my all-time favorite number one movie. The synopsis. This is a musical about teens and love in the 1950s. The story follows the summer romance between a good girl and a bad boy. She has to return home at the end of summer, but by a twist of fate, she moves back and unknowingly attends the same high school as the dude. When her new friends introduce her to him again, he acts cool for his friends and makes her angry. This is Grease. It came out in 1978, and it's starring John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John, R.I.P. to her. And I don't know what it is about Grease, but it is. I love this movie. I like music, and I love the music in this because again, I can't do Rent, and Rent is a musical as well. It's a song every 5 minutes. I can't do Rent. I can't do Color Purple musical either, but that's another story. But Grease is classic, and I feel like the soundtrack is pretty much John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John for the most part. The most known tracks, I guess, are Summer Nights, You're the One That I Want, and Hopelessly Devoted to You. I feel like most people know those songs. And if you were a Gleek like me and watched Glee back in the day, they covered a lot of these songs because in the show Glee, they covered Grease as their school musical. So a lot of the songs were played when they showed the musical when they were doing rehearsals for it. So you may be familiar with, some of it anyway. My favorite tracks on there is Born to Hand Jive and Grease Lightning. I think Grease Lightning has the best choreography. It's all men and I just love it. It's a very fun song. And Born to Hand Job is a fun song too. I don't know if you guys know what the hand job is, but it was an actual dance back in the 1950s. And let me see if I can remember how to do it. Tap your thighs. That's what these are. So it's tap, tap, clap, clap, tap, 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 uh. That's the hand job. You do it like fast, you go, and that's the dance they would do in the 50s. Obviously, we ain't doing that now in 2024. I wasn't even doing that in the 90s or the 80s, but still, I like the song. It's a very fun song, and it reminds me of the scene of the movie when they're playing the song. They're at a school dance, so it's very high energy, and the camera just shoots to different couples on the floor doing their own versions of the hand job, and it's very fast paced, and there's a lot going on, but just the energy is really good. The next one, this is also a musical, and again, y'all may not like the fact I'm including musicals. Too bad, so sad. This is, well, synopsis. This also came out in 1978, by the way. This is a reimagining of an older movie set against an urban background with a black cast. It says African American, but The story follows a woman, 24-year-old kindergarten teacher from Harlem, who, along with her dog, is lost in a snowstorm on the night of Thanksgiving and ends up in a different land, which looks like a strangely surreal version of New York City. There, she makes new friends, battles evil witches, and seeks the aid of the all powerful and mysterious person. Ultimately, she finds that if you believe with all your heart, you can always find your way home. This is The Wiz. And this soundtrack was produced by Quincy Jones. So obviously most of the songs, not most, all the songs are being sung by the cast members. So we're talking Diana Ross, Michael Jackson, Lena Horne, Nipsey Russell, and a few other people. The most known track I feel like is Home, which is like a solo from Diana Ross, and Ease on Down the Road. I feel like that's the easiest thing. My favorite song on here, you cannot touch Michael Jackson when he is singing You Can't Win. That song is so fire to the point where all the playlists that I have on Spotify, the only song that I have from this soundtrack is You Can't Win. That is an amazing song. Michael's voice sounds so freaking good. I love that song. And it's a depressing song to listen to the words, but it's such a great song. I love it. And I also have Brand New Day. The only have Brand New Day on there because it is kind of more of an inspirational song. And I guess actually it's a good balance between You Can't Win, which is depressing and it's really self-deprecating, and then Brand New Day, which is like, oh, it's a brand new day. We have a new day to do new things, whatever. But I love Brand New Day because it reminds me of the scene from an episode of Family Guy. I don't know if you guys watch Family Guy. I don't really watch Family Guy like that, but I happened to catch this one scene from this one episode, and I'm not going to tell you what happens, but again, pause this video, open a new tab for YouTube, put in Brand New Day Family Guy and watch that scene. It is hilarious. And so every time I hear the song, I think of the scene that just makes me smile. I think this is the last one. This is the last one. Okay, here we go. Number 10, synopsis. A girl and a boy love and play basketball together through many life changes from childhood to adulthood. They grew up in the same neighborhood and have known each other since childhood. As they grow into adulthood, they fall in love, but they also share another all consuming passion basketball. Terrible, terrible recap. But this is Love and Basketball that came out in 2000. I know some people don't necessarily care for this movie. I actually really liked the movie when it came out. I think some people don't like it because I feel like with any movie, you're going to question the motives and you're going to question the actions of some of the actors and actresses in the movie, but it's a movie. And so it's up to the producer or the director, whoever, to decide what these people are going to do, whether we like it or not. That's just what happens. So I feel like the most known tracks on here, again, we may forget that some songs came from movies. Dance Tonight by Lucy Pearl, a very short lived group that was a girl from En Vogue, was Raphael Sadiq and Tony Tone, and it was a guy from I think the guy from Tribe Called Quest, who was not Q-Tip and who was not, was it Fife Dog? So the other guy who didn't rap, I guess is a DJ, he was in Lucy Pearl. Very short lived, but their song Dance Night is in this movie, along with a classic song that is a gorgeous song and one of my favorite scenes from the movie, I Want to Be Your Man, Zapp and Roger. But my favorite track on here is Keep Holding On by Angie Stone. Beautiful, beautiful song. And Fool of Me by Michelle and Indegiacello. Now, my part that I love, I guess, about the Fool of Me song is again, it's a song that was written specifically for the movie for a very specific scene. And I love how, and this is, the songwriter's thing, but also the producer or director of the movie, how at the last scene where the two characters are playing basketball, there's a line where she says, "Now we're face to face and you won't look me in the eye," and it immediately zooms into his eyes, which are like cold and shut off. And so listening to the song, I can clearly see that entire scene play out in my head. And I think that's the beauty of a soundtrack song. That's what a soundtrack song is supposed to do. It's supposed to be a lyrical representation of a visual media that you just consumed. So I love when a soundtrack does that, that it literally takes you back to that place, to that moment. I love when we're introduced to new artists on these soundtracks. And so that's just my list. There are other soundtracks that are out there, obviously. I didn't include Shaft, which I know is a really huge one. I didn't include Above the Rim, which I know is a big one. But this just happens to be my list of my 10 favorite soundtracks. But feel free to comment below with your favorite soundtrack. Let me know if you like any of the soundtracks that I mentioned. Let me know what soundtracks I need to check out. Make sure you also like this video, share this with someone else, and subscribe to my channel while you're at it. And I will see you next time for my next video. Peace.